Absolutely. Yeah. It's a fascinating building.
Yeah.
It was a federal bank, Federal Reserve.
Well, no, it was at the federal courthouse.
It was a federal courthouse, but there was also those vaults that are downstairs and the vaults that are in like Marnie's office. There's vaults.
Yeah, I don't know when those came.
Yeah, I think yeah, there was some kind of Federal Reserve or federal bank piece of it too, the courthouse.
You know that.
Yeah. There's in the treasurer's office, there's a catwalk. The catwalk's gone, but there's vaults and doors that are what happens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is it haunted?
Do you feel? So when I first started in this building, I did feel like there was something happening, or there was some presence. So I don't know if Amanda feels that. And it didn't bother me, but I was like, yeah, things have happened in this building.
Oh yeah.
I'll say that.
The aura of commissioners past.
Yeah.
City and county.
Yeah, there was just some certain, well, the pipes, hot water radiator, you know, like you just hear banging and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's all good reason for it, but especially if I'm here at night and it's very quiet.
And it's kind of weird when there's nobody else here.
It has, yeah, it kind of has a little vibe
Just
to
had
it.
to click it 4 times.
Magic of technology. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're up and running now. Okay.
All right.
Can everyone online hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think we'll go ahead and, if you're ready, I think we'll go ahead and start, and then the mayor can sign on when he gets there. So it is little after 1:30 on December 4th, this meeting of the opioid settlement, Lewis and Clark County Metro Region. I'm Tom Rolfe, the committee chair, representing the county. And if we just go around and if each give your name and position, and put it on record.
Okay, I'm James Petrovich. I'm the director of the Master of Social Work program at Carroll College.
Colleen Smith, the executive director of Youth Connections and certified prevention specialist.
I am Amy Emmert. I am the senior director of population health at Seniors Health.
And Wes Feist, City of East Helena City Council and vice chair of the committee.
Go ahead, Ann, if you want to.
Oh, excuse me, Ann McCauley, grants and purchasing director for the county and the county's liaison, staff liaison to this committee.
And I'm Amanda Opitz.
Right.
I'm grants administrator for the city and the staff liaison from the city.
And Ann and Amanda are the ones that make things happen. Appreciate them. And our understanding is that the mayor is going to join us online, and when he comes on, we will include him. But I think we'll go ahead and get started. No corrections. If there's no corrections, they'll stand approved as read if that's agreeable. And then we'll go on and the next item on our agenda is to talk about the one request that we have moved forward and for funding. And I'd like Ann, did you want to give us an update on the Lewis and Clark County Detention Center project?
Yes, happy to, Mr. Chair. The Montana Opioid Abatement Trust Program Manager, Stephanie McGowan, has routed that to the county for our approval and our signature. I think it's going to be on next Tuesday's County Commission agenda. It is for just the 1 year of funding, 115, 200, I believe, or 800. And it does include the committee in that award. So I have a meeting set up with, we have a new commander in the detention center. It is no longer Brad Bragg, who is the one who presented the project in the application. It's now Troy Christensen, but he's up to speed on this, and I'll be meeting with him on the county side in the next month or two to make sure that he understands what those metrics are, what this committee was looking for, this committee's role in determining potential or subsequent funding and alike. And then also just to go through the, we're gonna have to do a full RFP process for that contracted position. So there'll be some pieces with it.
Really? Okay. An RFP.
Yes.
How they had identified a provider. That's how the budget was built around that one person.
They did, James. That's an excellent comment. So from when that application was submitted in February of 2024, we did an update to our procurement policy in April of 24.
Okay.
And in that prior policy, medical services was an exempt piece of it. Forth when it was put forward, it was an exempt
Gotcha.
contract under or contracting piece underneath our policy, but no longer is.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And our hope is that through procurement, we'll get competitive and excellent proposals.
So that adds a lot more work to you guys than what the original proposal was.
It does add some additional work. I think though, with the new captain or commander in the detention center, it's going to be a good opportunity to make sure everyone's on the same page with what the expected outcomes are for that physician position.
That's a good point.
Was everybody okay about the communication as we were moving forward on there? Was there any questions or anything that we can do to improve that for anyone? That seemed, we're kind of stepping into the water here, trying to set up some procedures and to make things happen. So if you have any suggestions as we're going along and things that we need to do differently, we, try to make it as understandable and agreeable to everybody as possible. Okay.
Oh, Ann and Amanda do a perfect job of keeping us informed, and the process has been great. So thank you all.
I'm right here in the building, so communication is easy, but I wanted to make sure everybody else felt like it was okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So anything, are there any questions that anybody that members of the committee have about the detention center funding or project?
Do you need any support or anything at the commission meeting? Do you feel that it warrants any of us to come and present or support the process in any way? Or do you feel comfortable with it just being an agenda item and moving forward?
I think it'd be okay being an agenda item. If some of you would like to come, we'd sure notify you, and you'd be willing to, in case questions come up, getting it from another party is probably always good. So
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commission, it is our county policy to have all grant awards come before the commission for approval. So that's kind of the formality of it for Tuesday. I believe Brad Bragg is going to be there to present the grant award, given the history of it. It's going to be at 9 a.m. in chambers right here.
yeah. All right.
So clarification, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So this is a 1-year funding. Does it start like the day they get the money?
Excellent question. So it's going to start the day, it's upon execution to 1 year. So it'll be Tuesday to this Tuesday of 25. And we are getting the money up front. So it's going to be the entire 1-year funding is going to be sent to us on the front end. It's not a reimbursement.
So how does that work with it, since it has to be RFP'd out? There's going to be a time lag, and then it's going to be off because it won't have been a year.
Yes, excellent question. I think we're still kind of trying to work that one out. I did let Commander Christensen know that it will probably be February or March by the time we actually have a position under contract and in place. So it is going to be a delay. I think with that, we'll probably ask for an extension on the award once we know what we'll probably have to extend to. And then the other component of this is it's not actually they're gonna want to know if they have another year of funding before the year end. Because the committee will want to know that. So I think I'll work with Stephanie McGowan and see if like maybe a September or maybe the 6-month report. So in the agreement, there's 2 reporting, it's 6 months and 1 year. But waiting until the agreement's up is going to be too late for this committee to examine it. So
So the money goes to the county because it's the Lewis and Clark County jail.
yes,
Okay. So we don't have to, like, if we find some, like the school district, it's not gonna have to come through the county or anything.
I'm wearing my other hat. Because it's a grant that the county's receiving.
Yeah.
That's a hat I'm wearing right now. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, good question though. There'll be some pieces on that timing. But for this committee's knowledge, it is important to note it probably won't actually see a physician in the detention center till February at the very earliest.
Okay. All right, anything else? Okay, well, then we'll go on, go to the next item, number 4 on the agenda, discussion of funding requests that are specific to Lewis and Clark Metro Region. If you remember, we have made the decision, and I'll just restate it for those that are online as well, that we were at this point going to only respond to items that are related to Lewis and Clark County. And that were sent to Lewis and Clark County specifically. And the more general requests that we get copies of, we weren't going to deal with. We're going to wait until we got some more input from the abatement trust state office. Okay. So let's go on to that first one, the one on the Helena School District project. Is there somebody out from the school district? I believe maybe so that would like to talk about that.
Mr. Chair, I don't believe there is. I think Nova is with St. Pete's, and Jolan is with Montana Free Press. So I'll just give, I guess, a little brief overview. So at the last meeting, when there was related to the 2 projects that were in front of us at that point, in front of you at that point, the detention center and the school district application, there was some request from the group to have some additional metrics from the school district to understand better what their plan was for sustainability, as well as sort of some baseline information from how they were going to be gauging their success. You should have all received in your email a copy of their response. I wish I could provide answers if you have questions specific to that, but I'm also
Everybody received a copy of that.
to route that.
All right.
School district as well. So this would just be an opportunity for you to continue to discuss that particular application if you'd like, or if there's additional questions, I'm happy to reach the school district on your behalf.
Did this give you the piece from the school district give you the information that you felt like you needed, or do you feel like you need something more to talk about it? Something
Was helpful.
was okay.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't know that I can answer that question as it gave me the answers I was looking for. It gave a minuscule amount of information that has been lacking. There was at least an opportunity to have a metric in here now. The 27% to 5 and the 12 to 5 high school, middle school of the elevated risk level. So that was good to at least see, but that is all based on surveys. It's all still somewhat difficult to know the effect that we're having with this funding. But I do think we finally got something that we were looking for. The other concern that I have is that they're still mentioning 3 to 5 years of this program, and knowing that this funding is only 1 to 3 years is also a concern I have for the future of the progress of the program. Not to say I don't feel it's worth funding, that's just a concern because it is a long-term project. And I know it was mentioned again in the update summary that they would hope to go out for bond, and that's just not an effective
Not very
plan.
clear.
So,
in today's
especially with
world.
recent history of levies and bonds in the school district. So that's just some concern I have, that I don't know if I'm the only one that has those concerns, or
Any, anything else that you'd like to discuss about that? Anything, are there other specific questions you'd like to see answered?
I hate to keep going back to them, but I mean, the question remains, I mean, for me, they were a little more specific about their evaluation method. They identified some measures that they're going to use, but it's just, I need a little more specificity of when these things are going to be administered, to whom. It just, I mean, these acronyms all sound great and everything, but it just, to me, a little more specificity about how that's going to actually play out and work over time would be helpful. And I don't know if these are replacing some of the measures that were originally discussed in the first application that really just sound like just community surveys that are done anyway. And so it doesn't quite feel more specific.
I wanted to say that, but this is the third time that we've gotten some information back. So I feel like we keep asking for that and haven't received it. And that to me is generous to keep asking, but keep getting the same answer. So, but I feel the same way you do, but I hate to go again. So what amount do we have remaining for the Lewis and Clark County portion with the, I know you were speaking, James, if that's okay.
Yeah.
With the detention center portion removed?
Mr. Chair, we have 484,968,000.
Left.
485 roughly left for this year. And I did get some clarification from the trust staff this week that the account essentially for Lewis and Clark will mature on the fiscal year. So we would receive another tranche, if you will, on July 1 of 2025. And that would be an additional 400,000. So depending on how and when you're looking to make an additional recommendation, there could be, I mean, if you sit on what you have for the rest of this fiscal year for the moment, you would just have that 485. But moving forward, you could have up to 885 that would be available for potential funding. And just to circle back to the not that there's any sort of a guarantee, and that's clear, I think, in the agreement, but the detention center project, I think, was a 5-year project. That was their request initially. So I mean, that's just something to keep in mind if you want to continue to invest in that project in the future. That would be something you can do.
And the funding that we have, did we get clarification on how that impacts the state or the multi-region project requests?
Mr. Chair, unfortunately, we did not. My understanding is that when it comes to the multi-region request, the state moat is not, they're still working on getting a handful of abatement areas even assembled. getting their committees in place. I think there were 2 or 3, Anne, to my memory, but we're still in the process of assembling. And so at that point, they had more or less told those multi-region groups that they're on hold until all of the abatement areas could be able to consider their application. I also believe that they have now removed any for-profit
Yes.
groups that were, and that was a good chunk of those it's an opportunity, right? You can't fault folks. So there was some money available, and the state trust has removed those applications that were for-profit companies. A lot of them were Narcan distributors and things like that. And did that answer the extent of your question? Yeah.
Thank you.
Another item of clarification, if we have about 485 left now, for this year, if we do not allow that, allocate that whole 485, say we only allocate 300,000, does the remaining 185 move on, stay with us?
Mr. Chair, that's my understanding. These are funds that have been designated for our county, so the money will sit in the trust until it's fully allocated.
And that's a good thing, because the 2 following years have a lower amount than the initial year. So having a bank would be good, depending upon what projects we may want to refund or new projects to fund.
That's
I don't remember
Mr.
the
Chair.
others.
And there is it's sort of a appreciating number of groups that are participating in the settlements as well as we move along, so that every settlement has been structured differently. What we sort of knew, and things are still coming in. I mean, as we speak, there are different groups that are settling, but generally speaking, the big distributors, Janison distributors, Walmart, a handful of others, those were more front loaded in the repayment of their settlements. And so we would have more money in the beginning handful of years. Right now, I believe the trajectory still is the longest repayment was 18 years, and we're 3 years into that. So that would be 15 years out. But that the projections, that money will slowly dwindle over time, unless there's some wild thing that comes out of it.
Well, I think pharma is in
right.
court to not
Pharma's
have
in
to
court,
pay, so.
right. And that's kind of another lingering question mark there. That would be another substantial settlement where it comes to pass. So
All right.
there's just a lot of that.
We don't know. Walmart was a one-time settlement,
Okay.
so that one was one time. The other ones outside of Janssen and distributor are more on like a 5 to 7 year, but then as Colleen noted, we're going to see potentially other ones come online. So
Especially the big ones.
and I think the moat, and I don't fault them for this, are taking a pretty conservative approach to those allocations. So I think 600,000, which actually combined years 1 and 2 is what we have right now. And then they're 400,000 for the next 2 years. It's probably conservative, but because they don't know either.
Okay. Any other questions or items of discussion for on the Helena School District request?
If I might, Mr. Chair, just I would love to provide some feedback to the school district. I guess I would offer to the group at this time, do you want a table discussion related to this item? Are you wanting to continue to keep them on as an applicant? I don't want them to kind of be wondering. So if we could provide some resolution for that group.
I sense maybe some interest in maybe in tabling for right now. What are the rest of you? What do y'all think?
I would like to give them an answer. I feel that we've been generous in requesting information and continued to that end. in my opinion, I'm more in favor of denying the project because of that. But then if we don't have funding requests and there's funding available, then I be more interested in looking into it. But at this time, I don't know, when is the school district's budgeting? Anybody have that off the top of their head?
They follow the state.
I think it's the state.
Their fiscal, the
I
July
can't
1
remember
fiscal
when.
year.
Yeah, I think it is, because when I worked for the school district.
So they're probably looking for an answer then too, so that as they go through the next 6 months, they can budget properly as well.
Would it be? I mean, I feel like this application has gotten so carved up. It's almost like I just want it to go away and start fresh. Like, put in something that's clean and I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that would say, I would be happy to sit down and say, hey, but I'm like, but that's not the way this should work. I mean, we should get products that meets all of our needs, gives us all the information we need, and we make decisions. But if that was allowable, I mean, I think there's a need in the school district for this. Obviously, they've identified that there are some children with opioid use disorders and they need help. I just think that it's everything is so convoluted and nebulous and opaque. It's just hard to figure out what this is actually going to look like. So that would be my thought, is deny it, but invite them to resubmit based on, I think we've given enough feedback that they should be able to come up with something that's just much cleaner
and targeted.
Yeah.
I would agree. And meets more of the needs of what the trust goals are, and review that. I would agree with you. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking as well.
Okay.
But not to diminish the need or the
Right.
work that's gone into it.
Do we have a motion?
I like that motion. Do I have to say it again?
I hear a motion to deny the request, but invite the folks to resubmit one that more fully complies with our need to have proper reporting and oversight.
And I will second your motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Is there any public comment on that motion? Is there any public comment?
The only thing I know nothing about the grant application. I had another conversation with the school district recently on some grant work, and I think it's very important that when you say this back to them, that again you're really emphasizing that you acknowledge that there is an issue in the school district and they play a key role in it, but that you are needing something else in the application, because that was something that they said they don't understand. They don't understand what the impact is at the school, and so I think it's really important to just acknowledge that you guys do that in your message back to them.
Well, could we, the staff prepare a note, and then Wes and I can sign it and send it back if this motion passes. And I think that's a good added point. All
Maybe
right.
this proposal is just way too broad. Like, if they were trying to do so much stuff, thinking that it would get funded if they were gonna do all these things, but it's just not feasible, actually.
All right. Any further discussion?
And just as commissioners, that maybe it would be almost to, as they focus, they may need to pare it down, but also that could be a pilot test. And based on what that program does, could be expanded potentially. I mean, so letting them know that this isn't just a one and done. I mean, as they demonstrate value and demonstrate good positive results, that, I mean, I think with any project, they'd be welcome to come back and potentially propose something else. Does that sound okay, Amanda? Trust your judgment on this side.
I really like the suggestion that we recognize that there is a need But we recognize that we'd like to help out, but we need something more specific. Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Then we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's discuss the request from from St. Peter's Health. Since we have somebody from St. Peter's here, why don't we just ask you to tell us a little bit more about
Sure. Yeah.
about your request here.
Well, as you guys are all aware, we are at this point in time the only emergency room in our area. And we do see a lot of individuals. There's some numbers in there. We have over 1,600 individuals that have hit our emergency room services under the use of substances, and most of them really looking at that opioid and the impact of mental health. What we're finding is that individuals are coming back in to the emergency room and not necessarily always getting the services that they need. And with the Fuse program, where we have our community health workers who work with a small group of individuals, they kind of have that partner alongside that journey. They are a non-clinical individual, but they really help to connect them to resources within our community. And so as we've seen with peer support specialists, so these are individuals who have gone through a substance use disorder and are now certified and sober, that this actually helps to create a bridge between the medical world and what the patient is experiencing. And so peer support is not a new service it's already in our community, but it's not available within our emergency room. And so what we're hoping to accomplish, a part of this would be to station peer support specialists in the emergency room. And so when someone comes in with an opioid use disorder, a need, that they then become a part of that individual's care team and help them connect to the resources. We understand that St. Peter's isn't going to be the answer to everything. But what we've done with our Fuse work is we've actually then identified, okay, this person needs to go to Helena Indian Life. This one's a peer view. This one could be going to St. Peter's. But then taking it a step further, with part of our request is to also have some vehicles that would be a part of this as well. Peer support specialists can bill for their services as it relates to transportation. And we've found that even if you send a referral for a patient to a service, sometimes they don't go. And so helping them to, that peer support specialist would be the one that calls that individual to say, hey, I see that you have an appointment with Dr. Moore on Tuesday. Do you have a ride? Do we need to get you there? Can I come get you? And we get them to the services that they need to get to. So a little bit more of that bridge between the emergency room, which is high costly services, time intensive, but really not the right place to be treating, substance use disorders, truly. In addition to that, so the vehicles would allow our peer support specialists to, like I said, go meet patients where they're at, or help them to get to appointments and services that they may not be able to get to on their own. And then we would also be working with our emergency response vehicles, or our EMS team members, to be doing Narcan leave behind kits. And so this is something that happens in a lot of other communities, but when they respond to an overdose, they have the ability to leave behind a kit with Narcan and instructions for the potential next avoidance of this situation. No questions asked, but it allows them to increase that reach of the Narcan. So that would be another part of this program. And then in addition to that, we have found that there's a barrier in our community to help individuals to get to a chemical dependency evaluation when they need a higher level of care. So that is something that's required by Medicaid to be able to go to an inpatient or more intensive therapy setting. for I'm blanking on my word, but for care. So what happens right now is that we only have one individual within St. Peter's. We have a handful in the community that do this. And so when that patient is in the emergency room or in the inpatient setting and they're ready to go to inpatient treatment, that's the time we need to actually have that chemical dependency evaluation happen. But what happens, because we only have limited resources, they get discharged, then they have to follow up, get the chemical dependency evaluation, and then hopefully are still in the moment where they're like, yes, I want to go to care. So what we are hoping to do with this is to pull our individuals at St. Peter's that do have the right credentials. There's been some changes to who can actually administer these over the years. And I don't know if St. Peter's has really kept up to speed on that aspect. And so what we would do is we would identify all the individuals within St. Peter's that meet the state regulations, train them. And so that any one of those individuals could administer a chemical dependency evaluation. So we would reduce that barrier for our individuals. And then I think I'm missing something, but I'm gonna have to refresh my brain. Nova, am I missing anything?
You covered it. Those are the top goals.
Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee?
Thank you,
Oh, I
Commissioner.
Forgot to add let me just add one more thing. Sorry. We are at this point in time asking for a 1-year budget. The cars would be a one-time purchase and cost. The peer support specialist, there is a potential that we would come back for additional funding request if the state does not approve peer support specialist billing for provider-based billing hospitals. So right now that is an addendum that's being submitted to an existing bill so that we would be able to bill for those services. Because at this point in time, they're non-billable services for us.
So I see you've got two and 3/4 FTE.
Yes. And that's to cover the total time of individuals. We would hope to have one stationed in the emergency room and then also one that's available in the outpatient setting as well. Again, to continue to increase that likelihood of individuals to not no-show, to reduce that barrier of transportation, or to say, like, come here, we're gonna do this together. We're gonna help you get there. So.
The 1,687 visits
Mhm.
is how many like individuals is that? Is it 200 or
You know,
300?
I thought maybe someone was gonna ask us that. I could go back and tell you that. I don't know that off the top of my head, but we definitely can slice it. It's definitely not a 1-to-1. Yeah.
Which
So.
is great because that having only 2 and 3/4 staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it is frequent flyers, repeat offenders, so to speak,
Mhm.
then that would make sense, that number of staff. So. And just another question, and under the schedule, it said peak hours, and then it said 9 to 2. Is that at night, in the morning?
It is not, it's during the day,
Okay.
the day, yeah. 9 p.m. Oh, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.
9 p.m. to
Correct.
2 a.m. Okay.
Sorry, it's been a long while since we put these numbers together.
So,
I do know that the weekends tend to peak as well.
What are you looking at, James? What are you questioning?
oh, just that they had hours listed, but it didn't have AM or PM. It's on page 5 under objectives.
Yeah, I think it's.
Oh, well, that's the 24 hour.
Oh, she has a 24-hour clock.
Yeah,
on here.
sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sure.
so it's that
You mentioned the 1,687 visits related to opioid use disorder, substance use disorder, mental health. Do you have a breakdown of, I mean, I know there's a ton of co-occurring, but that's just mental health that this wouldn't even address or shouldn't be addressing opioid money for mental health issues?
So I mean, we could go back and look to see that what we see in the emergency room is they often are co-occurring.
Right.
So they're using those substances to address their mental health, and if we don't address the mental health, they then turn to substances.
Yep.
So I think it's hard to look at one without the other,
Mhm.
because we know that that's often what they do.
Yep. And then you mentioned a similar community health worker, the 63 rides in 3 months. I'm just curious where that was at.
With our community health workers,
Mhm.
we just barely got a car for them. So that's a new thing.
So that was here in Helena?
That's here.
Oh, okay.
Those are our community health workers. That is
Nice.
provided, yep. And we've seen a huge reduction in unnecessary, emergency room visits or ambulance, services and things like that for these individuals.
Amy, for my keeping, can you state what you said again with the personnel 2.75, the 137? This is assuming that the addendum will go through for it to be billable.
So this is our one-time ask, and that we would not necessarily come back for additional funding requests for those positions.
Got it.
If that goes through, because then we would be able to bill for those services, and that would be our sustainability.
Thank you. Thank you.
Couple of questions. Are these 2.75 individuals working all at the same time, or are they spread throughout the 24 hours?
We would try to stagger them as much as possible, covering the peak times, knowing that, there may be one person that needs to go here and another person that needs to pick a person up. But yeah, we wouldn't necessarily have enough to cover the full 24 hours at this point in time. But
there would be oftentimes that there's one person on shift
during peak.
For that.
During peak hours, yeah, that's why we ran the numbers to really identify really when are the times that they're needing these services to try to cover as many as we can.
Knowing that we have 485,000 remaining, and this request is more than half of that, looking to see if there's an opportunity. And now, if you have another vehicle that St. Pete's owns, if there was a way to pare it down to purchasing one vehicle instead of two, to get the request lower, only because of the significant amount of it. But with that brings up another question: is funding a vehicle with this money, is it their vehicle inevitably? Do we have to, we haven't had a request where there has been a material item purchased to that extent that would then be St. Pete's vehicle inevitably forever.
Yeah.
Do we? I'm looking to you guys because you're all so smart about this stuff. Yeah.
Insurance and maintenance and gas and all that would just be St. Pete's.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it would.
And the vehicle itself at the end of the grant cycle, that's my.
Yeah.
Is it just your vehicle? Do we? What does that look like? Would be just a thought that I don't know that. That was a reaction I was expecting, is what does that mean? And we haven't had a material purchase to that extent. So I don't want to say, if we were to say yes, and then there's something that says, oh, you have to give the vehicle back or the funds back, or with it. I don't know what that looks like at the end of the grant cycle.
What if we give like a lease? I mean, put it into the, it needs to be a lease so that there's not
that material item at the end of it. Is that a question that Anne and Amanda, you feel you could ask what we've learned through this process, Amy, is that I don't think we ever have an answer at the end of one meeting, because these are so detailed and we're further ahead than most of the other groups.
Yeah.
So some of these things haven't been asked or answered. And it's a significant amount of money. But I would agree with you, Colleen, that I think a lease might be something more appealing because there's an end date of
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
where an organization doesn't materially benefit. Not that that's what you're looking for, but I just think that that's a possible concern.
That would be hard on a 1-year project, because,
Yeah,
because then you'd have to pay the lease payment
Sure.
after, but
But you can get a lease for a year, right?
I don't know, maybe.
but I guess that would just be a question of a capital purchase to that extent. I'm putting my state hat on now and thinking, oh my God, when you buy a capital item, the
Yes.
depreciation of it and what you. So, what that looks like in regards to this project, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question to ask the program manager at the MOAC about.
And then to my other question is 2 vehicles necessary or would be great, or would 1 vehicle get you to the place that you would want to be? So that would lower the request amount to make it a little more, not quite as much of the chunk that the county has to then be able to divvy out more. And $35,000 is a lot of money, so.
Yeah. No, but do you have thoughts on that?
I do, and visiting with Kayla Morris, when we were putting this application together, 1 vehicle would suffice for sure, and we would make do. It would, given the various shifts during the peak hours, I think we could navigate that with the sharing of the vehicle. So I don't see that as a game stop on if we were needing to decrease it just to 1, that wouldn't be the biggest deal. So
And otherwise, these 2.75 FTE, are they supplementing the FUSE program or are they supplanting current roles in the FUSE program?
So they would be, so FUSE would still exist. This would be in addition to.
Okay.
These would not necessarily just be FUSE patients. So FUSE patients have a really specific criteria of like how many times they've utilized services, if they're not housed, those type of things. Whereas the peer support specialists could and will be working with any individual that comes through. That, if it's a FUSE patient, they'll probably still stick with their community health worker because that's hard to add one more team member there. But if not, it would be that peer support specialist would work with any person that's coming through our doors.
So St. Pete's will still, I understand and appreciate from a community standpoint, the financial skin in the game that St. Pete's has put into the FUSE program. So that will continue from St. Pete's end.
Yes.
These will just be additional roles in the community to help further that.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
A question that I thought related to the vehicles again.
Yeah.
What about reimbursing the individuals that we're hiring on a mileage basis for providing their own vehicle? That might
So
help those folks out a little bit.
per our policy at St. Peter's, we can do that. And we did that the first couple of years with the FUSE program. We would reimburse mileage. But we are not able to transport patients in our own vehicle because it falls under their insurance, not the St. Peter's insurance. So that's why we would have it be a St. Peter's vehicle.
Yeah, makes some sense.
Under data source, that you were going to collect, under the hospital utilization data, you mentioned treatment and recovery rates. How are you going to get that number?
Yeah, so very similar to the FUSE program, we follow what those goals very frequently. And so we would be reaching out to those individuals and asking them did you complete your treatment rate? Or we can use, if they come to see Dr. Moore and Megan Zawacki, our addiction specialists at St. Peter's, we can grab that information from our EHR. If they're receiving services outside of that, it would be collecting that information from the individuals.
Do you have data? So maybe you gathered this from what we were asking about the Helena School District is instead of reduction, what we've kind of all talked about, and I'll speak for myself, I like to see a reduction from what to what, not just a reduction.
Yeah.
So what is the quantifiable as well as the qualifiable, what you're trying to do within the community, but quantifiable goals you're hoping to reach to show actual physical progress?
So we would be looking to have a reduction of our emergency room utilization and an increase in outpatient services and or peer support services that are being utilized, so that the emergency room isn't necessarily their stop shop to go, but that we identify if they're not getting services, we get them connected to services, outpatient services. And then depending on where they go, but screening tools like Audit C, their scores, it's a evidence-based tool that gives you a numerical number to their use of substances, and so you would see that numerical use of substances decrease.
So more specifically, from what percentage are you seeing any reduction now, if any, or what's your baseline? To what do you hope that reduction is? What is the percentage, the number, not just in general reduce it, but are you hoping to achieve a 2.75 FTE, 50% reduction, a 12% reduction, 100%? What is your goal?
I see what you're saying. I don't know if I could give you that exact number at this point in time. I think you can, just in general, putting a number out there gets a little scary for a grantee that is trying to say, because then if you shoot for the stars, or shoot for the moon and you land among the stars, are we going to be refunded? Are we not going to be refunded? And so some of that is just being completely candid and honest is hard to put it out there, because we are talking about humans, right? And that the end of the end, our goal is to continue to help that individual, but they may not always accept the help. And so, I think you could always shoot for a safe number, but then that would probably be lower than what this committee would be hoping for, but that may be the reality of, where we're at. I don't know, Nova, if you want to add anything into my ramble.
I agree with how you said that, and I can certainly work with Kayla if that's something the committee wants us to put a number to. We do that, of course, with a lot of our grants, and we understand the need for that. So if that's something you guys want us to go back to the board on, we can certainly try to put a number on there. But I agree with Amy.
I think you've got a really successful Fuse project that you could kind of look to a little bit, maybe for some data. But in the end, it feels like it's going to be very to the individual, because your baseline is the folks who you're eventually going to recruit. As they come in, they are now in your sample, and you'll have the medical records to look at. So you'll be able to kind of quantify and see that difference. But I think I think a number is, like a goal is reasonable, but a safe goal, but also recognizing that, like you just said, this is people, and this is the first time this has been done in this community that I haven't been here that long, but so I think there should be some latitude to understand this is kind of, again, a pilot, and we're doing the best we can to make the goals. You're going to do the best you can, but we also have to recognize that whether you meet that or not doesn't mean it's not successful.
Right.
It could be successful in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm very congested. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If I were to put a number to something right now, I would say probably 20 to 30% is the percentage that we typically say is a safe place to land. We get excited when we see 50% reductions and things like that with our Fuse programs, but that would definitely be something that I would be shooting for, especially in year one, just because it might have a slower startup because you do have to hire and stuff. But 20 to 30% reduction of unnecessary ED visits, then you would see an increase of outpatient services.
And to me, I would just like to see that more formally, to say for next year that we have the ability to reasonably understand and say you have achieved a goal. And if you 15%, but you've also seen a reduction in emergency room visits, and there are other adjacent successes. To me, as I review them, as long as I'm on this, I would say, well, that's still a success. There was a lot of benefit, but I think that having a goal numerically, as well as what you're trying to accomplish within the community, is something that we have at least been talking about a lot, and we were really stuck on with other applications. So I think holding you all to the same standard of that is it is something I would just like to see more formally.
One thing I may suggest in your guys' application, in other areas, like in other grants that we've submitted, when they use that, it's required that there's a SMART goal, so it's, measurable,
Yeah.
it's time limited, like all those things that, so maybe making that definition, because then you will have, like, by this time, we will achieve X, Y, Z.
As measured by.
As measured by. And actually, so this
Yes.
is not the committee's application, this is the state's application. They did it without input from their abatement agent, so. And we have actually made that recommendation, I think, in an updated application, and I hope that the state trust looks towards that recommendation, because I agree, as a grant writer, right, you want to put in what you're looking. I think this committee's doing a great job of asking for those specific SMART goals, but it's not clear in here. Well, and I agree. I think it's a really great knowing that, because then it's twofold, right? You get to help to identify the areas that maybe you are falling short on goals, and maybe you need to put additional resources or time or energy to. But then it helps to tell the story, which then it helps our community to support different initiatives and endeavors and things like that. So I agree. We can definitely go back and put some more concrete information in there.
And as James mentioned, you all have a lot to lean on, because I think the Fuse program has been what you all have done, and doing that on your own has been impactful for the community. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Is there, would there be, you mentioned, you've said first year, but as far as I know, this is the only year as far as this proposal goes, because it's a 1-year application, I think is what's said, isn't it?
Correct. We are doing a 1 year, and Nova, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if the legislative rule doesn't change,
Okay,
then there's a potential for a second year request as we work to find different funding sources for keeping our peer support.
yeah. I would want to think about this as a multi-year project.
So we don't think of it as a 1 year project. We
Perfect.
just know we, at this point in time, just need 1 year of funding to get it up and
I appreciate your faith in the legislature.
I mean, that's through Medicaid, right? That'd be Medicaid billable. Correct. So the peer support specialists right now are not Medicaid billable. Correct. But hopefully the addendum that is going through, or will go through, will make that an eligible Medicaid reimbursable.
That'd be great.
That's great.
Personally, I really think that the peer, using peers for this is a good spot.
Yeah.
And I like that whole concept. I look at the numbers and I see 1,600 over a year. What's that? 5 or 6 people a day on an average. And then how many of those are you going to get set up with appointments? It's a recontact thing, I'm assuming, because chances are you aren't going to have an appointment that day that they're there, but getting back to them. But I wonder whether you're going to, how many people you're going to keep busy doing this.
You would be surprised. I think the biggest thing, again, not necessarily coming at it from just the person getting them a resource connection, but they become a part of their circle, right? So there's that connection of building a rapport with them, touching base with them, helping them to know, that this journey is their journey, but this journey can take a different path, and that individual is a way of showing that, I have successfully been able to do this. And so I think that when it comes to just getting them connected to the resources, that will be, a part of their job, but not the whole point of their job, that person may be in the ER today. We work to get, and especially at 9 o'clock at night, you may not be able to touch base with Pure View or Helena Indian Alliance or those type of things. So then the next day you're following up to see, how do we get them in? How do we get them there? All those type of things. So there's a lot more of those follow-up tasks that take a lot more time, energy, and efforts to do. So yeah.
So do you have peer support right now?
We do not. No.
Okay.
Nope.
And nothing to your application. I've just heard from other communities that are having a really hard time trying to keep peer support because it's a trigger. And sometimes those people relapse.
So we are also in the process of working on a policy that allows them to continue to work even if in the event that a relapse does occur, because we understand that addiction is a process and a journey, and there's never a start or stop. So while our community health worker that works in the Fuse, Mark Ney, he is not a peer support individual, but we understand and we hear a lot from him that this work is very challenging, and we are very. Kayla does a really good job of touching base, and these individuals would actually report to Kayla, but touching base with them and saying like, hey, actually, I think you need a mental health day. Like, I think she says it way better than that, but like really from the standpoint of really understanding her people that she works with, because it is taxing. And we don't
Mark
want
has
that.
been doing it for a long time.
Mark has.
He's very good at it.
Yeah. Yes. So I would agree it can be
Yeah.
That
I just know
can be
Billings has had a hard time trying to keep.
yeah.
Well, you mentioned it, but I think just the idea of having folks available when that moment of readiness does occur, which can be brief and infrequent. And I think, I've seen people be ready, but surrounded by providers, but they're not allowed to transport in their cars.
Right.
And so, and that person actually did pass away eventually due to their addiction.
Yeah.
And so I think having the resources, it's that wraparound, ready to go, kind of the no wrong door approach is, I think it's needed.
Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of community members who have gotten to that point where they're ready. And we did all that we could at that moment to get them set up for success. But that at that moment was a bus ticket, and they had to get on by themselves and make it to Billings. And the moment that bus stopped at Butte, they got off. And so that's when you have that person next to you saying, we got this, we can do this. And so we are doing a lot of good work trying to wrap resources around, but sometimes it is just kind of that glue holds everything together with an individual. So
How innovative, or it was to me, is what'd you call it, the leave behind?
the Narcan leave behind.
That I hadn't heard of that.
I had done some research around that. I know that there's been some communities more in the South that are doing this. Yeah, but it is with a kit. The kit has an instruction information, but yeah.
Well, it would be, I don't know, from a research perspective, be interesting to see what happens to those kits and how many of them get used and for the right reason. I mean, I don't know, but it's also a great outreach tool as, people see that kind of a gesture, it might make them think differently about reaching out for help or something like that. So I think that's a neat approach to the project.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the committee? I'm sensing some pretty high interest here. Or would you like to go?
I would make a motion to table just because I would like to have some quantifiable, and then we have questions for the state. But the next funding is in January. Is that when the next state group is meeting? And it would be quarterly, so we wouldn't, unless we came together before they met again to just review this one.
Can we just do like a quick Zoom meeting vote kind of thing?
And I would be fine with that. I think, do you know the date of their meeting?
I want to say January 14th.
Okay. So we have some time.
Yeah, I think it's the week of January.
Okay.
If we could, if we were to meet that first week of January and would that get it in time for them to consider it if we were to move forward?
We can certainly ask. And get that in our-
Yeah, all right.
Stephanie, that might be about that might be pretty close for them to, I'm not sure what their timeline is
Yeah.
that they get.
You find out what their drop dead date is,
Yeah.
and then let's see what we can do.
Yeah, and from the data standpoint and information coming back on our end, we could have it to you by the end of the week. That's not a big deal. The car funding and that type of stuff I don't know where you need to take that information.
Would you kind of funnel that through Ann and Amanda, and then they'll get it out to us all?
Yep.
And we can kind of be on deck to come up with it. If we were to fund a portion of it rather than the whole thing, would that be or would that not be enough?
A portion of just like the whole thing altogether, or the cars, or
total amount is 200 and something,
250.
250.
yeah.
You know, and maybe if we were to decide that we were uncertain about the vehicles or some other portion of it, you know, and pared it back a little bit, would it be acceptable?
Yeah, I think some funding is better than no funding.
And I don't want to I don't want to speak for the rest of the committee, but I think that there might be some, you know, in case we decided to go just partially or something like that.
No, absolutely.
Okay,
Understandable.
all right.
Is there a recommendation of how many peer support specialists you should have per? I mean, like you have 2.75.
Like their patient to
Yeah.
staff ratio.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look to see if there's a patient to staff ratio for peer supports. I think it really does depend on the complexity of the patient. So when you look at like a community health worker, there's evidence out there that talks about, you know, you could have a community health worker to 200 individuals, but that might be someone who really just needs a reminder that they're due for their colonoscopy and things
Right.
like that. Whereas they really do cap more around the fews to like 25. I would say these individuals are going to fall in between fews and, you know, at 200s, I would say somewhere between 50 to 100. But I think, again, it depends on the complexity of the individual. So
Labor intensive they are.
yes, but probably more towards the 50. So I'm being honest. And again, it depends on where they're at in their journey of sobriety.
Any other questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair. Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to provide some clarification before we move. Both of those, moving to table. So just the questions that we're going to ask of the vote are related to capital assets and purchasing and how that works, and if that's appropriate and acceptable. And then the questions for the applicant who's in the room is some specificity related to goal setting for reductions. So more of a SMART goal addendum. And then the question that James asked related to visits versus individuals, it's clarification on that. Did I miss anything?
As always, we got it all through our mumbled mess.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair Committee, I just looked up the next advisory committee meeting for the state, and it's actually January 9th, which is a Thursday. So we might have to meet prior to that, January.
So why don't we could at least maybe try to set something up on Zoom in 10 days or something.
And if they can get us information by Friday, we have a few days to review it. And then if we
Absolutely.
met, I'm fine with that. A half-hour remote meeting.
Okay,
It'll be
does that make sense? Yeah.
December 15th.
All right. So a motion?
I made a motion to table.
That's right, to table, but with an option to.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
to move on.
Awaiting information.
Okay, awaiting information.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a second?
Second,
All right. Is there any public comment on our discussion or our motion? Any public comment? Is there any further discussion from this committee? Being none, we'll move to a we want to read back the motion for it to me.
Mr. Chair, the motion as I've written is to table while we await more information to be provided from St. Peter's Health and the Montana Opioid Abatement Trust staff regarding eligible grant expenditures.
Okay, and with the goal that we might have a Zoom meeting sometime in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Okay, all right. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for the work that you guys are doing.
You're kind of, like the Sheriff's Department, kind of our guinea pig, we're
Hey, you know what? You should come hang out with the Population Health Department. We are all. So,
that's great. Thank you, Nova.
I also want to say.
Thanks, Noah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, the magazine?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I love reading. They're great. Little spotlights of Helena.
Thanks,
Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
we'll
it.
be in touch. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Do you trump cards at this point?
All right.
Don't have to wait card. Official committee cards.
We should have trump card. Someone the other day was like, do you know Andrew Holly? I'm like, I mean, I have her with me.
All right, let's go on to the simulation training and opioid response plan improvement. Dorby? We don't have anybody here now.
Mr. Chair, we do not, and we actually didn't even invite St. Pete. They just knew this meeting was. I mean, we would like to set up a time to have someone from this. Who's coming and prevent that.
All right, but let's just see if anybody has the initial thoughts about these.
Mr. Chair, I like this from the perspective that we've been trying to work on some projects, or what we've had come forward to us are items directly impacting those that may have opioid use disorder. What I like about this one is it's training first responders and others that may be in contact with them. To me, that's getting to the point of what the MOAT is all about, that it's multi-pronged and it's not just for the end user, it's for everyone affected. And so I liked this, and I thought it was a fairly conservative budget for what they're hoping to do. But I liked the training, and I think that community-wide, coming from the city council perspective, this isn't training necessarily that our police officers receive directly on the kind of softer touch training. And so I appreciate that as well. And I know East Helena Police Department would probably be interested in this, and as well as maybe others. So I liked it. I thought it was different and could benefit the community in a different way.
I noticed in there that they were specifically talking about fire departments and EMS personnel that are in Clark County. Yeah, and maybe some spilling over the neighboring small counties, but and apparently they've been doing this sort of training with other parts of it. I think they're primarily in the western part of the state, from what I saw there.
Yeah, and thank you for that too. I shouldn't have said just police department or fire department, and others I think could, especially one like ours, we have a volunteer fire department in the city, and I think
and so many of those are many of the people that are going to be first responders are members of volunteer fire departments. And so I think so too.
And I like that it goes out, it's not just Helena, it's the whole county, and they talk about going out to Lincoln and
Augusta.
many smaller
I'm just
communities.
wondering if they've
normally
talked
get
it
this stuff.
to anybody and gotten positive responses about
Mhm.
being able to use it. Could we maybe ask them to provide any people within Lewis and Clark County that has had some interest in
Felt like, and I don't remember where I read this, that they hadn't, this was their reaching out to our county because they've only focused on other communities.
it? Mhm.
I did talk to somebody that had done this, or, because I was kind of lukewarm, and then I can't even remember, I mean, it's been a couple months, and, yeah, and they just said that it was really helpful. Maybe, was there a video or something that came with this? Maybe not.
That'd be great.
But yeah, I like it, and like I said, I like that it goes, that it's gonna hit the smaller communities in the county.
This is
Oh, no.
kind of a one-time, or maybe over a period of a 6 months or a year, the training that's available. Here's a page that talks about St. Peter's Health, Parker Mill Clinic, benefits on down, Lincoln, Augusta, probably like different ones offer.
And I apologize, Mr. Chair, they have trained over 15,000 first responders in all 56 counties.
But
But who those are, I don't know. So someone in our county has been.
I guess I'd like to hear from some of the local people to see whether they feel like they're covered on this already, or if they need it.
So kind of seeking a reference.
Yeah, from some people in our area, within our county.
To some of our earlier comments, I feel like their goals are a little
Mhm.
training, I think would be really helpful. I mean, they're giving us a lot of big picture stuff. And it's just a weird thought I had. I don't know if we could look into it, but people can apply to different. They don't have to do multi-region, but they can apply to different regions. Is there a way we could find out if these folks are applying to other regions?
We absolutely could.
And I would.
And they were just smart and did it.
And actually, I don't know.
Individual.
I don't know if it was this one, but I know of one that has.
Did
done
you
it.
really?
Yeah.
They got wind that the multi-regions on pause, so they
Yeah.
were just submitting the same application to individual regions.
It'd be interesting to see if
I know that there was at least one that started doing that. I'm
Oh,
not sure
really?
If it was this one or not.
Okay.
We can certainly ask. Or yeah,
And too bad Amy left. We could have asked her who she knows that they worked with at St. Peter's. But they're ambulatory. And they did do something with East Helena. They have the name in here, but to what, then I don't know to what extent. So.
I think if most of our, I suppose we could talk about it well, I guess fire council was this week, so January fire council, we might be able to go and get an idea of what kind of interest there is,
And I can call our fire chief and ask him, and our police chief and ask him, and
Kevin's so active, he
Yeah.
would probably.
yeah, he's on the
have
East
an
Gate Volunteer Fire Department.
Yes,
our DES manager, Kyle Sturgill Simon.
pardon me,
Our DES manager,
yeah.
Kyle Sturgill Simon would be excellent to ask too. He's very looped in with the
Yeah.
volunteer fire departments.
And I think he's actually gonna be gone for a couple of weeks.
Oh, you're right.
Vacation.
You're
I
right
can-
about that.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
broad.
Can say from my role at the state and with the Department of Administration doing emergency services planning, we the majority of us in the division are CPR certified. We have Narcan across the Capitol complex. There's a lot of resources through Highway Patrol and through our division that we would be interested in this training too. So there, and by we, I mean the division that, and then the Department of Justice folks that oversee the Capitol complex from a law enforcement perspective. So I can say that I know that there would be interest in that regard.
I was a little unclear on the sheet where they listed out, as they show 5 trainings at $15,000 a piece. So I guess I'd want to make sure that it can be used. That's the big.
Yeah, how many people can they
Handle
during the training? Would be nice to know, so some of the outlying areas could take advantage of it. Kind of almost a per participant cost for the training would be nice to figure out.
Although they do additional support afterwards too, so.
Oh,
Where would you like to go? Nobody online.
Well, if we have some pointed questions for them and wanted to take the same philosophy of
yeah,
how many trainings, or how many trainees do they hope to train? How many trainees per training do they hope to complete it, which you had asked?
basically.
And then some references of Lewis and Clark County or Lewis and Clark County adjacent folks. Could say this is what it did and here's how it benefited us. That would be helpful. I know that public entities have a hard time giving reference. Sometimes state's not allowed to give references in that regard, but if someone was able to, I think that could be helpful.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to know if we have people we can speak to about this, is what was their impressions kind of the follow-up stuff, you know, I think. Did they use it? Was it useful? I mean, it's an interesting part of what they offer, but I'm just wondering like if the utility is really there and if people really take advantage of it. I don't know that that would change my decision, but
I think they do, just based on the conversation that I had with the person that I can't remember.
it's been a compelling conversation.
Right? No, it's great. Lots of brain cells.
I am assuming that this, well, it does have a .org address, so it must be nonprofit. If the moat had otherwise taken out.
Yeah, they provided their internal, their IRS determination.
Oh,
letter
true.
in here.
Yeah, that is in here. Yeah.
So I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to table this proposal, pending responses to questions
Okay. All right.
and references.
That sounds good. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any public comment? No public comment. Yes.
I can ask a clarifying question. So, for the item related to the St. Pete's application, we'd be looking to have that as a single item on an upcoming Zoom meeting for a funding decision. And then potentially, did you want a representative from this organization to come, similar to Amy being able to answer questions, or did you want that, try to have that information in advance and have both of these on the docket for a quick Zoom funding?
I guess it's up to what you all think, but my thought is to just deal with the one on the St. Peter's information on the Zoom, and maybe have this for our next meeting, maybe the first meeting in after the first of the year. Does that seem reasonable or not?
Works for me.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'm fine either way.
Okay.
It'd be nice to
if things come together
Yes, I-
faster, we could do it, I guess, if, you know. Okay.
maybe on the next, maybe on the next meeting, we have both of them, but if we don't have the information we need. But I would say for them not to be there to present necessarily, that should be a quick call, but if they provide us with some information back by the next meeting, we have the opportunity to look at it. And then we can at least, if it's on the agenda, at least then make a motion to approve or deny based on what they have to say or table from there.
Okay.
Is that okay? And at least because I agree with Colleen, I wanna get it out or move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my only thought was just kind of thinking about the funding, the pot that's available. I mean, if St. Pete's reduces theirs by the 35, but if they only get the one car, that takes them down to like 215. And then this one is 75, so that's 290. We haven't heard back from, and then our total available of is
485.
okay. Okay.
So we'd still have 100 some.
Enough to throw a nice holiday party.
All right.
But
So
then
it's
the
just
school
recorded.
district's gonna be, yeah. If we decided to, if they submit something that's tighter and more concise,
There would still be enough for that as well for this year.
200,000.
Was theirs 200,000?
No, I was just thinking that's what was gonna be left after.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think theirs was 115. But making that up, I may be making that up.
115 was the one.
15 was the detention.
Yeah.
fund.
197 was the school district. Excuse me. I was not close.
Well, it could fit within our bucket.
Mhm.
Well, and could the hospital reduce their FTE to 2 instead of 2.75? I mean, I guess that was the point I was getting to is what's the caseload? What they could handle. Or should handle.
Mhm.
Organizations that have utilized the training in Lewis and Clark County. And if possible, for the organization to submit the requested information in time, the committee intends to have a remote meeting to make a decision on the proposal the week of November 15th.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. As I look through the other requests, it appears that all the other requests are really multi-jurisdictional requests, unless I miss something. And so I guess we'll wait for more information, look forward to a Zoom meeting then in the next week or thereabouts.
Do we want to discuss account and option now?
Oh.
No,
What a response.
I could see it.
Let me get my calendar.
Are we starting with looking at next week?
Probably, I was thinking the week of 15th to hopefully get the information from St. Peter that we directly discussed with them and give you guys a few days to look it over, but maybe the end of next week, Thursday or Friday.
Are we thinking next week or the following week?
We will need to have a little time for public notice as
Yeah.
well, too. That's always something.
Maybe we should look at the week of Monday, the 16th.
So, okay.
Wednesday after 11 is wide open for me on the 18th. Tuesday is actually open as well.
The 19th works for me in the afternoon.
I could do that.
Yeah, Monday through Wednesday, I don't know what my schedule will be quite yet. We have consultant coming to do a review of a program. So the 19th would work best for
That's good
me.
right now for me.
I can do 1:30 or 1:30 would be the best.
1:30
Or,
and 19th
Yeah,
works
that.
well for
Let's
me.
shoot for 1:30 on the 19th
I can do it.
for a Zoom if finding everything comes together that you need. Okay. That work for everybody?
But you'll still send out a meeting request to me. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Awesome. Appreciated your Facebook post.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very, very dignified, very supportive, very forward looking. So
Well, thanks, James.
this is not one and done for you.
We'll see.
And we're shooting 1:30, probably 1:30 to 2:30 probably. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other discussion that you'd like to bring up? Anything that we should be doing differently than we're doing now? I really appreciate you two ladies.
Yes.
You've been
We appreciate
making it work.
Very civil and thoughtful committee compared to a lot of work with, so.
Gosh, thank you very much. Well, and if you want to put the notice up for that at the appropriate time and doing everything, information we need. And then we probably want to have a meeting sometime shortly after their meeting, what you said was the 9th or something.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the 9th of January. And then it looks like they're meeting quarterly, so they probably won't meet again until April. So we could do this committee's next meeting.
So maybe we could set something up, shoot for February. As a regular meeting. Things will change for us. We change all of our committee assignments at the county at the first of the year. And Candace will become the chairman in her third week. We each are chairman of the commission on the 3rd and 6th years of our term.
Oh, okay.
And at least that's been the habit for some time. They might decide when it comes to my turn, they don't want it.
but she won't share this committee.
No,
Okay.
but we may change. I'm going to request to stay on this committee for a while.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then we'll probably have a rotation after a while, because I think it's important for all the commissioners to have that hands-on experience. And anyway, that's once we kind of get our dates of by February, we can kind of sort things out a little bit better and get something. But let's tentatively look for sometime in February for a meeting and a few ladies. Once we kind of, if I can get my schedule together by early January, from there.
I would appreciate that too, because we'll know what session looks like for my other role. So I will have a clear picture of what like.
But is there any public comment? No public comment? Anything that's the business of this committee, but not on the agenda that anybody would like to talk about? Anything more that the committee would like to bring up?
When's our Christmas party?
Yeah. Well, we'll stand
Chamber is having-
adjourned and
Mingle tonight.
wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too. There's a small business expo at the Colonial at